She was halfway through tying her shoelaces when I said it. All right, go ahead. But the moment you step out that door, our marriage is finished. Don't ever think about coming back. She froze. One knee on the bench, fingers clenched around the laces like they'd suddenly turned to wire. Her head didn't move. Just her eyes, lifting toward me, shocked, offended, calculating. Silence. Then the laugh came. Soft. Arrogant. The kind of laugh people give when they think they're smarter than you. Don't be dramatic, she muttered, standing, brushing non-existent dust from her jeans. It's just a trip. Trip. That word again. Always a trip. A getaway. A quick recharge. Last time it was Tampa. Before that, Vegas. Before that, a friend's lake house that mysteriously had no Wi-Fi, no photos, and no cell service. This time, Charlotte. Supposedly. Her bag sat by the door. Not the usual one she used for girls' weekends. No. This was her sleek, black overnight case, the one she only used when she wanted to look expensive. And on top of it, a gift bag, wrapped in gold foil, tied with black ribbon. That wasn't for me. I didn't ask questions. I'd stopped asking 3 trips ago. Instead, I leaned against the doorframe, watching her adjust her necklace, the one I never gave her, and I wondered how many lies can live in a single moment before it breaks under its own weight. She grabbed her keys. "You're really doing this?" she asked, turning to face me now, finally giving me her full attention. "After all this time?" "No," I said quietly. "You already did." She scoffed, shook her head like I was the unreasonable one, and then she walked out. I didn't follow, didn't slam the door, didn't text, didn't ask who he was. I just stood there and watched through the blinds as her rideshare pulled up. The driver got out, opened the trunk, smiled at her like they'd met before. She laughed, tossed her bag inside. The gift bag stayed in her hand. Then, just before she got in, she paused, turned, looked directly at the house, at the window, at me. I didn't flinch, didn't wave, didn't give her a scene. She got in. The door closed, and the car pulled away. That was yesterday. And this morning, I found the thing that changed everything, something she'd left behind by mistake. It was under the cushion. Small, flat, shiny, and it wasn't hers. The object was cold in my palm. Smooth, rectangular. At first, I thought it was one of those cheap hotel keycards. But when I turned it over, I realized what I was holding wasn't just a key, it was a badge. Not a regular work ID either. This was an access badge to a company I'd never heard of before, Zerton Technologies. Glossy black background, white font, a QR code, and a photo of a man I didn't recognize, smirking like he'd just gotten away with something. Name, Travis R. Meadows. I blinked at it. Once. Twice. And then it clicked. She hadn't left her own badge behind. She'd dropped his. I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, heart racing in a way I didn't like. Travis Meadows. I'd heard that name in passing maybe twice. Someone she collaborated with on a marketing project? She brought him up so casually months ago, like he was just another name in a sea of Zoom meetings and deadlines. I hadn't thought anything of it, because that's who I am. Or who I was. Naive. Accommodating. Soft. I placed the badge on the coffee table and stared at it for a long time, like maybe it would confess. But of course, it didn't. It just sat there, smug in its silence, daring me to dig deeper. I should have left it at that. Should have tossed the thing in the trash and taken my dog for a walk or buried myself in work like I usually do when the world feels like it's tipping. But I didn't. Something in me had shifted the moment I said those words at the door. The moment she smirked like I wouldn't follow through. So I went to the home computer and typed in the name of the company. Zerton Technologies. Clean website. Sleek design. Mostly cybersecurity and cloud automation jargon. I navigated to their About page, found their leadership team, and there he was, Travis R. Meadows, Director of Sales Operations. Lean face, cocky grin, and a LinkedIn link that practically screamed, "I steal wives." I clicked on his profile. And what do you know? He just posted a picture from the rooftop bar at the Westfield Grand in Charlotte. Timestamped 30 minutes ago. 2 wine glasses. 1 pair of sunglasses. And the caption? "Productive weekends make for unforgettable memories." My jaw tightened, because the sunglasses on the table were hers. I bought them for her last spring when she claimed she needed something elegant for a friend's bridal brunch. Oversized frames, tortoiseshell sides, a tiny chip on the lower right corner. No doubt about it. She was with him. Right now. Not recharging with the girls. not walking trails or eating tapas in ropes. She was sipping wine with Travis R. Meadows on a hotel rooftop on my dime, wearing the same smile she used to give me on Sundays. And I sat in our quiet house in yesterday's clothes, trying to remember the last time she looked at me without flinching. I should have been furious, but honestly, I felt numb, like I was underwater and the real world was muffled above me. My thoughts turned cloudy and disjointed. How long had this been going on? Were her business trips even real? How many lies had I swallowed, thinking I was just being paranoid? I thought of the dinner 2 weeks ago. Her phone buzzing on the table, her fingers swiping it away too fast. Work, she said. You wouldn't understand. I thought of the night she came home at 2 a.m., smelling like peppermint and musk. Ray had a meltdown. Sorry I didn't call. I thought of every late night, every locked screen, every time she rolled her eyes when I said, I miss us. And then I thought of something else. The drawer in her nightstand. The one I hadn't opened in over a year. Something told me to look. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted more evidence. Maybe I just wanted to be wrong, to find old receipts or pins or hair ties. But I walked upstairs anyway, past our bed, still perfectly made, and knelt beside her drawer. The first thing I noticed was how organized it was. Almost too organized. Lip balm. A single notepad. A pin. A silk scarf I hadn't seen before. And underneath that, a folded piece of paper. Neatly creased. Unlabeled. I opened it, and what I read made my stomach twist into knots. It wasn't a letter. It was a printed confirmation for a rental property on the coast. A cottage. Booked for 2 adults. For nights. Romantic seclusion guaranteed. And the signature at the bottom? Callie Brennan and Travis R. Meadows. The dates? Starting this Friday. And in that moment, everything stopped feeling real. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning a future with him. I stayed in that spot for a long time, kneeling beside her drawer, the printout clutched in my trembling hand, as if the ink might disappear if I stared long enough. The reservation details were crystal clear. 2 adults, check-in Friday afternoon, check-out Monday morning, oceanfront view, private hot tub, champagne welcome. It was an escape plan, complete with every romantic cliché you could buy online. But it wasn't the cottage that shook me, it was the timing. Friday was just 5 days away, which meant that even as she was packing her bag last night, she already had this place locked in with him. That realization did something to me. It didn't make me angry, not right away. It made me quiet. Still, like when you're driving and realize you missed your exit 20 minutes ago but don't want to admit it yet. A kind of delayed panic. A hollow buzzing in your ears. She wasn't planning on telling me. She'd hoped I'd just keep nodding. Keep pouring coffee. Keep pretending not to notice. Maybe she thought I'd cling to the fragments she was dropping behind like breadcrumbs, small reassurances, half-hearted pecks on the cheek, meaningless, I love you, as whispered when she thought I needed to hear them. And for a while, maybe that's exactly what I did. I folded the reservation back into a perfect square and tucked it into my shirt pocket. I didn't know why I kept it. Maybe part of me wanted to hold onto something physical, proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Because I'd asked myself that more than once lately. Was I imagining the distance? The weird silences? The sudden shifts in tone? Was I just some washed-up husband who'd grown too soft, too boring, too convenient? But this wasn't imagination. This was printed, dated, booked. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and just stood there watching the condensation crawl down the glass. Everything felt too quiet, too artificial. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt staged, like I was on the set of my own life. That's when I opened the group chat. We'd started it years ago, me, her sister Erin, her 2 closest friends Brooke and Janie. Mostly vacation pics, holiday planning, memes I barely understood. I never posted much, just threw in the occasional thumbs up or LOL. But now, I scrolled all the way up. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Maybe some clue. Some breadcrumb I'd missed. And then I found it. A photo, buried 3 weeks back. Posted by Janie, captioned, that rooftop view, though. There they were. All 4 women, smiling into the camera. And in the corner, barely visible in the mirror behind them, Callie's reflection. But not alone. There was a man beside her. Hand on her waist. Head tucked slightly toward her neck. The angle was terrible. Blurry. But it was enough. Enough to confirm that even on a supposed girls' weekend, she couldn't keep herself from being seen. Worse? That photo was taken in Charlotte. The same city she was in right now. Which meant this wasn't their first time there. They had a place. A pattern. A system. I felt nauseous. I opened my laptop and typed Travis R. Meadows into Facebook. His profile was locked down, mostly, but his friends list wasn't. And right there, third from the top, Callie Brennan. They weren't just colleagues. They were connected. I clicked through her profile. She hadn't posted much publicly in years. Just some work-related things and a few scenic pictures from places she never went with me. But one photo caught my eye, a close-up of a wine glass on a balcony, overlooking the ocean. No faces. Just the corner of a man's shoulder, blurry in the foreground. That picture was uploaded on a random Monday 3 months ago. I remember that Monday. She told me she had a 10-hour training seminar and wouldn't be home until after dark. Suddenly, I couldn't sit anymore. I paced the living room, circling the couch like a man preparing for something, but I didn't know what. Revenge? A confrontation? A calm, calculated letter? None of it fit. Nothing I imagined gave me the peace I thought I'd feel once I found out. And then, as I was about to put her laptop away, I heard a notification. It wasn't hers. It was mine. My phone buzzed once, quiet, discreet, like the universe just nudged me with its elbow. The notification was from our home security system. Motion detected. Front porch camera. I tapped the alert. And there she was. Callie. Back early. Luggage in hand. Looking nervous. Looking caught? She hadn't expected to return to this. I don't know what she thought she'd come home to, a clueless husband watering the ferns? A soft apology? A home-cooked dinner? What she was about to walk into was something entirely different. Because now I knew. And the second she reached for the doorknob, I was already standing behind it. The second her hand touched the front doorknob, I stepped back and pressed myself into the hallway shadow beside the coat rack. I don't know why I did that. I wasn't trying to scare her. Maybe I just wanted to watch her. See her face before she saw mine. See if she'd walk through that door like nothing happened. No guilt. No hesitation. No trace of the betrayal she'd wrapped in a silk scarf and packed neatly into a black overnight bag. She opened the door slowly, carefully, as if unsure what she'd find on the other side. Her eyes darted around the foyer first, the floor, the empty couch, the scent of home. She exhaled in relief when she saw no sign of me. That hurt more than it should have. Like she was relieved I wasn't here. Or worse, she hoped I wasn't. Then she stepped inside and softly closed the door behind her. Her heels made 2 hollow clicks on the hardwood before she froze mid-step. The reservation printout was on the entryway table, right next to her keys. Folded. Visible. Intentional. Her entire body stiffened. Like the house itself had caught her. She didn't say anything. She didn't call out. She just stared at the paper like it might detonate if she moved too fast. I found it, I said quietly, stepping out from the shadows behind her. She spun around so fast she dropped her purse. It hit the floor with a heavy thud, too heavy. The kind of weight that doesn't come from makeup or gum or phone chargers. Her mouth opened, then closed, like she was scrolling through excuses in her head but couldn't find one fast enough. It's not what you think, she started. Stop, I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was steadier, firmer, but hollow, like I was borrowing someone else's composure. I wasn't going to go, she said quickly. I hadn't decided. I needed space. I pointed at the paper. That's a $2,600 decision, Callie. Non-refundable, by the way. She flinched. Then came the tears. Fast and practiced. She covered her mouth, staggered back into the corner like she was the victim, like I'd ambushed her in her own house. I messed up, she whispered. I was confused. I didn't know how to talk to you about it. My jaw tightened. You didn't talk to me. You booked a coastal cottage and printed a confirmation. That's not confusion. That's coordination. She slid down the wall, sitting on the floor like a teenager grounded for the first time. I wasn't going to go, she repeated, quieter now. I swear, I wasn't. I told him I wasn't sure. I told him I needed more time. Travis? Her eyes widened. That name hadn't come up. Not from her. I walked to the coffee table and held up the security badge she'd left behind. He dropped this. In your rush. Must have slipped from your bag. She didn't reach for it. Didn't deny it. Just buried her face in her hands. You lied to me for months, didn't you? I asked. Still nothing. Every trip. Every girls' weekend. He was there. I didn't yell. I didn't shake. But inside, something broke. Not a dramatic crack. More like when the last thread of a fraying rope gives way and everything just falls. Why him? I asked, not really expecting an answer. Was it the charm? The excitement? Or just, not me? She finally looked up. Her makeup smeared, her lips trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. He just saw me. I stared at her. So did I. She flinched again. Every night. Every morning. Every boring Tuesday when you came home tired and didn't want to talk. I saw you. I stayed. But you stopped trying, she shot back suddenly, her voice sharp now. You stopped seeing me as a woman. You were always tired, always quiet. I felt invisible. I didn't respond. Because maybe she was right about that. Maybe I had faded, grown dull in the routine. But I never left. I never lied. I never treated her love like it was optional. You should have told me you were unhappy, I said, instead of feeding your unhappiness to someone else. She stood slowly, brushing her hands down her thighs. Her shoulders were shaking now. What are you going to do? She asked. And I could see it. She still thought I might beg. That I'd break. That I'd fall into that same old version of me who would take her back, smooth it all over, pretend it never happened just to keep the house quiet and the marriage technically alive. I walked to the front door and opened it. What are you doing? She asked. I looked her dead in the eyes. I'm giving you what you wanted. What does that mean? It means you're free. You made your choice. And I'm finally making mine. She looked terrified. And I didn't care anymore. She stood in the middle of the living room like she was trying to convince herself this wasn't happening. I think a part of her still believed she had leverage, that her tears, or the weight of our history, or maybe even just my quietness could buy her more time. But I wasn't quiet because I was weak anymore. I was quiet because I was done. She took a step forward, hands trembling at her sides. Can we just sit down? Please? Talk like we used to. The irony hit hard. Like we used to? I asked, shaking my head. You mean back before all the lies, or somewhere in between your second and third hotel rendezvous? Her face crumpled. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But it did. And you didn't stop it. You fueled it. You protected it more than you protected this marriage. I was trying not to lose my grip, not on her, but on the clarity I had in that moment. It was like waking up from a long, strange dream and realizing how long I'd been sleepwalking. I could finally see things as they were. Her body language, her evasive phrases, the way her phone was always upside down or in her purse, the late-night showers, the dead zones during business trips. They weren't random. They weren't just in my head. They were patterns I let slide because I didn't want to believe what was right in front of me. She looked at me now like I was some stranger she didn't expect to stand his ground. I think she wanted me to yell, to scream, to fall apart, because that's easier to fight against. But I wasn't giving her that. I was giving her a mirror. You said you felt invisible, I said. But you disappeared long before I stopped noticing. You started rehearsing your exits in real time, while I was still trying to plan our future. She covered her mouth again and started to sob harder. The mascara streaks were sliding down her cheeks, and for a brief second, I felt this twisted flash of pity. But it vanished just as quickly as it came. Because that pity? It had kept me stuck. It had made me compromise, soften, excuse. It had made me ignore what I now understood was her complete withdrawal from us. I don't know how to fix this, she said in a whisper. You're not supposed to, I replied. That's the part you never understood. Some things don't get fixed. Some things just end. I turned and walked into the den. There was a small fire safe beneath the cabinet where we kept all our joint files, insurance, mortgage documents, passwords. I pulled it out and entered the code. It clicked open, and inside was a single manila envelope I'd prepared the night before. I slid it out slowly and walked it back into the living room. Her eyes locked on it immediately. She didn't have to ask. I handed her the envelope. What is this? My answer, I said. It's a formal separation agreement. I had it reviewed already. There's nothing vicious in it. Just clean lines. Fair terms. You'll see I left the savings untouched. I'm not interested in making this uglier than it already is. She didn't move. You can take the weekend to think about it, I added. But I'm not going to wait in limbo. Monday, I'll be contacting my attorney and filing. If you want to dispute anything, we'll do it through mediation. But if you agree to what's in there, we can sign and move on like adults. She opened the flap and scanned the first few lines. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wasn't expecting me to actually follow through. Maybe she thought I was bluffing, just trying to scare her. But as the silence stretched between us, I saw the truth hit her in waves. You already printed this, she said, voice cracking. You planned this. I planned it the moment you walked out that door without your ring. I just needed confirmation. But what about? She stopped herself before finishing. Her voice was trembling, and her shoulders were slumped. What about everything we built? Everything we built, I said, deserved more than what you did to it. She sat down on the edge of the couch and stared at the envelope in her lap like it was a ticking clock. I don't know where I go from here, she muttered. That makes two of us, I replied. But one thing I do know, I'm not going back. I don't want to wake up next to someone who made me feel like a placeholder. She closed her eyes, and her voice came out in a choked whisper. I didn't think you'd actually let me go. You left yourself, I said. I just finally caught up. I didn't ask her to leave right then. I didn't throw her things onto the lawn. That's not who I am. But I did walk upstairs, pack an overnight bag, and leave the house without saying anything else. I needed space. Not to clear my head. I already had clarity. I needed distance from the person who chose someone else while pretending I was still her home. That night, I stayed in a cheap motel 20 miles outside town. No views. No champagne. Just peace. And for the first time in a very long time, I slept without dreaming of her. But little did I know, the next morning, something was coming that would change everything all over again. I woke up in that motel room with a dry mouth and a heavier chest than I'd gone to sleep with. The room was quiet except for the occasional groan of pipes through the thin walls and the hum of an old mini-fridge that sounded like it was ready to die. Sunlight leaked through the yellowed curtains, casting dull stripes across the carpet. I didn't move for a while, just stared at the ceiling, breathing in that strange motel smell, bleach and stale air, cheap coffee and quiet regret. Then my phone vibrated. I hadn't checked it all night. I'd turned off notifications the moment I left the house because I didn't want to see anything from her. I thought I'd prepared myself for silence. But when I looked and saw 12 missed calls, all from her, something icy slid down my spine. I opened my voicemail with shaky fingers. No message. Just call after call, spread out between 1 a.m. and 4:40. Something about that specific window made me uneasy. Then I noticed the texts. The last one was timestamped just 15 minutes earlier. It said, I didn't know what to do. Please call me. Please. I messed up. Something's wrong. I stared at it for several seconds, then opened the thread. The first few were what I expected. Apologies, half-explanations, long-winded emotional flares. But the tone changed halfway through. The last 3 texts weren't about the marriage or the separation agreement. They were short, strange, disjointed. Did you do this? Where's my work laptop? I need to talk to you before they do. What? I sat up slowly, heart thudding now. Something was off. My gut twisted not with anger, but with something colder, dread. I called her. No answer. Tried again. Voicemail. Then my email pinged. It was a message from my bank, a security alert. Unusual login attempt from an unfamiliar IP address in Raleigh. That's 3 hours east. I hadn't been to Raleigh in years. And more importantly, neither had she. Except, maybe Travis had. I quickly logged in to check, and that's when I saw it, 2 failed login attempts and 1 successful access of our joint account. Not just viewed. Someone had transferred funds. $12,800. Gone. My chest collapsed inward. I scrambled to access the full transaction history, my fingers shaking so badly I kept mistyping my own password. When the page finally loaded, I sat back and stared. The transfer had happened at 2:14 a.m. to an external account labeled MW Consulting. I clicked the details. The recipient name was partially redacted, but the address? It matched a co-working suite in downtown Raleigh, the exact same suite listed on Travis R. Meadows' LinkedIn profile under his side projects. She hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She'd left the door wide open for him to walk into our finances, too. My phone buzzed again, her name flashing on the screen. I picked up this time. What did you do? I asked, skipping hello. Daryl, she breathed into the phone, her voice cracked and frantic. I didn't authorize that. I swear to God. I gave him access to my computer last week when mine froze and I needed a file. He must have. You gave him access to our accounts? No, not directly, but he saw me log in. He must have saved it or something, I don't know. You let him use your laptop? The one connected to our finances? I didn't think. No, you didn't, I cut in. You never do. Silence. I thought you two were just sneaking around in hotel rooms, I muttered. But it turns out you brought him into our accounts. Our names. Our savings. You didn't just break trust, you gave him a key. I didn't know what he was doing, she said, but her voice was smaller now, less defensive. I thought it was just us. I didn't know he'd do something like this. You don't know him, I said. You only know how he made you feel. That's the difference. She started sobbing again, this time more raw than rehearsed. What do I do? I already called the bank. They're investigating. But the money's gone, Daryl. It's gone. No, I said quietly. It's not gone. It's stolen. There's a difference. And in that moment, something inside me clicked. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This wasn't just a shattered marriage and a heartache that would fade over time. This was theft, manipulation, maybe even fraud. And I realized I wasn't just a betrayed husband now. I was the victim of a scheme I might have been targeted for without even knowing. Because I had a stable income, good credit, predictable routines. I was safe. And people like Travis hunt for that. Do you know where he is now? I asked her. No, she whispered. He stopped answering my calls 2 hours ago. I think he left town. I rubbed a hand over my face, trying to process what this meant. For my accounts, for my job, for my legal responsibilities. I need to speak with the fraud division, I said. And you need to prepare to tell them everything. Wait, she said suddenly. Are you going to the police? Yes. You're going to involve them? He stole our money, I said. He used you to get it. If I don't act now, I become responsible for whatever comes next. Do you understand that? She went silent. And for the first time, I think she realized what she'd really done. Not just to me, but to herself. The police officer leaned back in his chair and exhaled through his nose like he'd seen 100 versions of this before. Maybe he had. I guess there's no shortage of men and women walking in to say they trusted the wrong person, some cheating partner, some friend with big promises and quick hands. But I doubt many came in with a financial betrayal wrapped inside a marriage unraveling in real time. Officer Morgan was calm, methodical, and surprisingly patient. I appreciated that. He didn't ask stupid questions. Just listened while I explained everything: the money transfer, the account access, the connection to Travis Meadows, the fact that the login originated from a city 200 miles away while I was sleeping in a motel off the interstate. When I handed him the printed records, he nodded, flipped through them, then looked up at me with a tired gaze. Mr. Brennan, you understand this might go beyond domestic issues, right? I do now, I said. That's why I'm here. And your wife, Callie, she's aware she gave someone access to sensitive financial systems? She's claiming she didn't realize what he was doing. I don't know how much of that is true, but she confirmed he had her laptop and saw her use the login credentials. He tapped his pen slowly against the desk. That gives him a line of sight, but not permission. And if funds were withdrawn without her explicit authorization, it could very well qualify as wire fraud, especially if he transferred it into a shell account like it appears here. I swallowed hard. What happens next? We'll open an investigation and refer this to cybercrimes if needed. But these cases take time. And unless he used his real name and bank account, which I doubt, it's likely he had this exit planned. This guy? He's done it before. Maybe not to your wife, but probably to someone. That part chilled me, because it sounded true. The officer offered to take a formal statement from Callie if she agreed to provide it, but I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to protect her still, even after everything. But another part, the louder part, was growing tired of cushioning her from the consequences of her own recklessness. If she was going to hand pieces of our life to a stranger in exchange for a thrill, then maybe this was the outcome she needed to feel just how far she'd fallen. I drove back to the house slowly, staring at the endless gray strip of highway, wondering what else she hadn't told me. Every conversation we'd ever had was now under a microscope. Every client dinner, every late-night walk, every business text she'd smiled at. It all felt like hidden pages torn from a story I never knew I was living in. And now? I didn't even know where she was. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. Her car was gone. Inside the house, the lights were off. The air was still. But something was different. I walked upstairs and saw the bedroom door open, closet doors halfway swung. The drawers were open, half emptied, and there was a note sitting on the dresser. My name scrawled across the front. Slanted. Rushed. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. For some reason, I didn't want to read it right away. I wanted to stand there in the stillness and pretend she hadn't just bolted. But eventually, I unfolded the page. Daryl. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't sit here waiting for the cops or the bank or you to tell me what I already knew, that I let something in, and now it's destroyed everything. I'm not running from the consequences. I need to think. To breathe. You were right. I made myself small, but I also made you smaller in the process. I'm not proud of what I've done. I wish I could undo it. But I can't. Please believe me, I never meant for it to go this far. I'll be in touch. Callie, that last line, I'll be in touch, felt like a gut punch. What does that even mean? A week? A month? A farewell? I checked the safe in the den. Still locked? I opened it to double-check. The documents were there, untouched. But the key to the second safe deposit box we kept at the bank was missing. I hadn't checked it in years. It only held our wedding photos and some keepsakes. Or so I thought. I called the bank immediately, asking to place a hold on the box. The clerk sounded confused. Actually, Mr. Brennan, someone already accessed it this morning. You came in with a woman. We checked your ID. What? I asked, pulse rising. I didn't come in. Another silence. You didn't authorize anyone? No. Who was the woman? But of course, they wouldn't say. They promised to flag the box and launch an internal review. And just like that, I knew this wasn't over. She hadn't just vanished, she'd taken something else. Something I didn't even know I still valued. The woman I married was no longer who she once was. And now I had no idea what else she might do next. The next 3 weeks passed like the slowest rain, not pouring, just steady, quiet, relentless. I didn't hear from her. Not a text, not a call, not even a signal from a mutual friend. The bank finished their internal review and confirmed that access to the safe deposit box had been granted using a forged ID and my duplicate key. Because she had once been added as a secondary contact, there was no red flag until I intervened. They were sorry, of course, apologetic in the professional way banks are. But the damage had already been done. Whatever she'd taken, it was gone. At first, I couldn't even remember what was inside that box. Then it started to come back in fragments. A letter from my father, written the year before he passed. A USB drive with a recording of our first dance at the wedding. A pair of cufflinks that belonged to my grandfather. None of it valuable to anyone else, but pieces of my history, my bloodline, my quiet legacy. I tried not to let it gut me. Tried to remind myself that she had stolen from herself too, her dignity, her trust, her place beside someone who would have gone to the ends of the earth for her. But something strange happened the deeper I sank into that silence. I started coming back. Not all at once. Not like in the movies where the hero emerges reborn and polished. No. More like the tide, slow, irregular, but steady. I began making coffee just the way I like it again. I stopped flinching at shadows in the hall. I reorganized the attic. I threw away the wine glasses we never used and replaced them with heavy mugs that felt solid in my hands. I got a haircut, not a drastic one, just enough to look in the mirror and see a man who was finally claiming his own face again. I changed my banking passwords, updated my emergency contacts, and I filed the final divorce paperwork on a Wednesday afternoon without a single tear. A week later, I got a letter in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single page. No apology. No defense. Just a small note, handwritten in looping cursive. I left the USB drive and your grandfather's cufflinks in the mailbox behind St. Vincent's Church. You'll find them there. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to have that part of your past back. That's all it said. I drove there that evening. The old mailbox was still standing behind the chapel's faded stone wall. And inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was the flash drive and the cufflinks, slightly tarnished but intact. I didn't cry. I didn't call her. I just held them in my hand and sat in the car for a long time with the windows down and the music low, watching the sun slip below the horizon. It wasn't closure. Not really. But it was enough. Months passed. I started walking more, cooking real meals, talking to my sister again. I got a dog, not to replace Murphy, who passed away 2 winters ago, but to remind myself that loyalty still exists somewhere in this world. I named her Ruby. She's part shepherd, part mystery, and she snores louder than I do. One afternoon, while grabbing groceries, I bumped into a woman in the parking lot. Literally. I dropped a bag of apples and apologized 5 times like an idiot. She laughed. We ended up talking for 15 minutes about the absurdity of adult life, then somehow ended up grabbing coffee that same day. Her name's Mallory. She works in urban planning. She's funny in a dry, low-key way. Nothing serious yet. But she listens when I speak. And that alone feels like a beginning I didn't know I was ready for. I don't think pain ever fully disappears. But it becomes part of you, not a wound, but a scar. And scars are reminders that you survived. So yeah, my wife left me. She crossed that threshold and thought I'd chase her. She thought I'd break. Instead, I stood still. And in doing so, I found the version of me I forgot I used to be. That's what I've kept. That's what she didn't take. And that's more than enough.